My brother forgot I existed for 15 years, but when he saw my $12 million mansion on House Hunters, he remembered we were best friends. Welcome back, family. If you haven't already, subscribe and say hi in the comments. We'd love to know where you're watching from. With that, let's continue today's story. The phone rang at 2:47 a.m., shattering the silence of my penthouse bedroom. I'd been awake anyway, staring at the ceiling, thinking about tomorrow's board meeting. Success had brought me everything except peace. When I saw Kevin Richardson flash across the screen, my heart stopped. Kevin. My brother. The one who hadn't spoken to me in 15 years. Jade? Jade, is that really you? His voice cracked with false emotion, that same theatrical tone he'd used as a kid when he wanted something from Mom. How did you get this number? My voice came out flat, emotionless. Years of boardroom negotiations had taught me to betray nothing. I saw you. On House Hunters International. That mansion. Jade, I couldn't believe it was my baby sister. You looked so beautiful, so successful. I told everyone, that's my Jade, that's my best friend. Best friend. The words hit me like a physical blow. I remembered being 8 years old, crying outside his bedroom door, begging him to play with me. I remembered his friends laughing as he said, "Get lost, freak. Nobody wants you here." I remembered standing at our mother's funeral, watching him walk past me like I was invisible, air, nothing. Kevin, it's 3 in the morning. I kept my voice steady, professional. But my hands were shaking, gripping the silk sheets Mama never got to see, never got to touch. I know. I've been up all night thinking about us. About what we lost. Jade, we're family. Blood. Don't you think it's time we reconnected? I've changed. I swear I've changed. I didn't answer Kevin immediately. Instead, my mind spiraled backward, dragged by the undertow of memory to a childhood I'd spent decades trying to forget. I was 7 years old again, sitting at the kitchen table with my homework spread before me, when Kevin came home with his trophy. First place in the state science fair. Dad lifted him onto his shoulders, spinning him around while Mom cried happy tears. What about Jade's spelling bee? I'd whispered so quietly I barely heard myself. I got first place too. Dad set Kevin down, barely glancing at my participation ribbon. That's different, baby girl. Kevin is going somewhere. Well, you'll find your way. Kevin had smiled at me then, not cruel exactly, just absent. Like I was a chair, a lamp, something in the room but not part of the celebration. That was the moment I realized I was invisible in my own home. Jade? You still there? Kevin's voice pulled me back to the present, to my $12 million reality. Why now, Kevin? Why after 15 years of absolute silence? He laughed and I heard something dark underneath it, something desperate. Can't a brother miss his sister? Look, I'm in town for a convention. Let me take you to dinner. Catch up. Please. For Mama's memory. Mama's memory. He knew exactly where to stab. Our mother, who died 5 years ago, who'd spent her last weeks asking for Kevin, who never came. Who held my hand and whispered, "You were always the strong one, Jade. Don't let them break you." Against every instinct screaming at me to decline, I heard myself say, Thursday, 7 p.m. I'll text you the address. I don't know why I agreed. Maybe part of me, that little girl crying outside his bedroom door, still desperately wanted her big brother to see her, really see her. Maybe I needed to prove something to myself or to his ghost in my memory. I spent the next 2 days researching Kevin online, something I'd avoided for years. What I found hollowed out my chest. His LinkedIn showed a series of failed businesses, each one more ambitious and more disastrous than the last. His Facebook, before he'd made it private 3 months ago, showed a wife named Denise and 2 kids, Kevin Jr. and Aaliyah. They looked happy in the photos from 2 years back. Recent posts were sparse, generic. Then I found the foreclosure notice. Public record, cold and brutal. The house in the suburbs, the one with the wraparound porch he'd posted about endlessly, was gone. Bank owned as of 6 months ago. Coffee, Ms. Richardson? My assistant, Patricia, appeared in my office doorway, her dark eyes concerned. You've been staring at that screen for an hour. Patricia, have you ever had family you'd be better off forgetting? She set the coffee down, considering. My sister borrowed $50,000 10 years ago. Promised to pay it back. Used it to start a business that failed in 6 months. She calls every Christmas like nothing happened. She paused. But I answer. Because I'm weak or hopeful or stupid. Maybe all three. What would you do if she suddenly showed up after years of silence, right after seeing you'd made it big? Patricia's expression hardened. I'd remember that blood doesn't erase patterns. People show you who they are. Believe them. I chose Celestine's, an upscale restaurant in the arts district where the waiters knew me, where I could control the environment. I arrived 30 minutes early, positioning myself at a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. Control. Always maintain control. My therapist, Dr. Harris, had taught me that. You can't control others' actions, Jade, but you can control your environment and your responses. Kevin arrived at 7:03, 3 minutes late. Deliberate, I recognized. A power play making me wait. He'd aged, soft around the middle, lines creeping from his eyes. But his smile was the same, that practiced charm that had always worked on Mom and Dad. He wore a suit that was expensive 5 years ago, now slightly worn at the cuffs. Jade. He opened his arms for a hug. I stood but didn't move closer, extending my hand instead. Something flashed across his face, annoyance maybe, before he covered it with a laugh. Still all business, huh? I remember when you used to chase me around the house begging for piggyback rides. I was 6. I'm 38 now. I sat, gesturing for him to do the same. You look well, Kevin. You look incredible. That dress probably cost more than I want to think about. He laughed again, but I caught the bitterness underneath. The show didn't do you justice. That mansion, Jade. $12 million. I couldn't believe it when I saw you touring it with those agents. My little sister. Half-sister, I corrected quietly and watched his jaw tighten. Different mothers, remember? The waiter appeared and Kevin ordered the most expensive item on the menu without looking at the prices. Old habits. I ordered a salad I wouldn't eat, my stomach already churning with anxiety. When we were alone again, Kevin leaned forward, his expression suddenly earnest, vulnerable. Jade, I owe you an apology. For everything. For not being there when when Dorothy died. For the funeral. I was messed up dealing with my own stuff and I was a coward. I'm owning that now. Therapy has helped me see that. You're in therapy? I didn't bother hiding my skepticism. 6 months now. Denise insisted after things got rough. And she was right. I've learned a lot about myself, about my patterns. I pushed people away, especially you, because I was scared of being vulnerable. Dad always taught me that emotions were weakness, remember? I did remember. I remembered Dad telling Kevin to man up when he cried about losing a baseball game. I remembered Dad's different approach with me, softer but somehow more dismissive, like my feelings didn't matter enough to correct. I remember a lot of things, Kevin. I remember my 8th grade graduation. You were home from college. I asked if you'd come watch me receive the Academic Excellence Award. You said you had better things to do. I remember Mom's last birthday when she asked if you'd visit. You sent a card. A card, Kevin. I know. God, Jade, I know. And I've carried that guilt every day since. When I saw you on that show looking so elegant and successful, I realized what I'd thrown away. We're all the family each other has left. Dad's got his new wife and her kids, they've basically replaced us. Mom's gone. Your mom's gone. It's just us now. His words should have moved me, would have destroyed the younger version of myself. But I'd learned to read people in boardrooms full of sharks. I'd negotiated billion-dollar deals with men who smiled while planning to destroy me. And I saw the calculation behind Kevin's tears, the way his eyes darted to my Cartier watch, to the Hermes bag hanging on my chair. Why are you really here, Kevin? I kept my voice gentle, giving him rope. I told you. To reconnect. To be family again. He reached across the table for my hand. I pulled back, pretending to reach for my water. Hey, look. I'm not going to lie to you. Things have been hard. The business failed, we lost the house, and Denise's medical bills from her surgery last year buried us. I'm not asking for charity, Jade. I'm being honest about where I am. Because that's what family does, right? We're honest with each other. There was the setup. The stage being carefully set. I'd seen this play before with business partners, with friends who'd disappeared after my startup failed, who'd reappeared when I sold my second company for $48 million. How much do you need? Kevin's eyes widened, false surprise. What? No, Jade, that's not. I didn't come here for money. How much, Kevin? He was quiet for a long moment, and in that silence I saw something crack in his facade. Real desperation, real fear. 250,000. To cover the debts, to get us back on our feet, to give my kids stability again. Aaliyah, she's 8, she's the same age you were when. He stopped himself, but we both knew. The same age I was when he told me I was worthless. Do you remember what you said to me at Mama's funeral? My voice came out steadier than I expected, cold and clear. I tried to talk to you, tried to tell you she'd asked for you in those last days, that she'd cried for you. And you looked at me, Kevin really looked at me for the first time in years, and you said, "This is your fault. You never should have been born. Dad would have stayed if it wasn't for you and your ghetto mama." The color drained from Kevin's face. Jade, I was grieving, I wasn't in my right mind. I held her hand while she died. She weighed 93 pounds. Cancer ate her alive, and she spent her last coherent moments asking where you were, why you wouldn't visit. I lied to her, Kevin. I told her you were overseas, unreachable. I let her die believing you still loved her, that you cared. And 3 days later, at her funeral, you destroyed me. I was wrong. I was so wrong, and I've regretted those words every single day since. His voice broke, tears streaming down his face now. Real tears, I thought. But real tears didn't erase 15 years. Please, Jade. I'm begging you. Not just for the money, for forgiveness. For a chance to be the brother I should have been. I stood, dropping $500 bills on the table. I became successful, Kevin, because I learned to value myself when nobody else would. I learned that love isn't supposed to hurt, that family isn't supposed to make you feel small. You taught me that. So thank you, actually. Thank you for showing me exactly who to cut from my life. Jade, wait. Kevin grabbed my wrist as I turned to leave, his grip tight enough to hurt. You owe me, he hissed, the mask completely gone now, replaced by something ugly and familiar. Dad paid for everything for you. Your school, your college, everything. That was money that should have been mine, do you understand? You took from me just by existing, and now you've got $12 million and you can't spare $250,000 for your own flesh and blood. I looked down at his hand on my wrist, then up at his face, twisted with entitlement and rage. The restaurant had gone quiet, other diners watching. Dad paid child support because a court ordered him to. That's not generosity, Kevin. That's the law. And he spent maybe $10,000 total on my education because Mama worked 3 jobs to cover the rest. So no, I don't owe you anything. Let go of me. He didn't. His fingers dug deeper and I saw the waiter approaching, phone already in hand. You're just like your mother. Trash. Gold-digging trash who trapped my dad and ruined our family. And now you're sitting on millions while my kids are suffering, while my wife can barely afford her medication. Your wife. The pieces clicked together suddenly, brutally. Is she sick, Kevin? Really sick? Or was that a convenient story? His hesitation told me everything. She had surgery last year, that part's true. But she's fine now. And the kids are fine. And the only one really suffering is you because you made bad decisions and you need someone to bail you out. Like you've needed your whole life. I twisted my wrist. Broke his grip using a technique from the self-defense classes I'd taken after my ex-boyfriend got aggressive. Kevin stumbled back, shocked. I'm calling the police, the waiter said quietly, and I nodded. The police came, took statements, and let Kevin go with a warning after I declined to press charges. I didn't want his arrest on my conscience, didn't want his kids to visit their father in jail because of me. But I did want the paper trail, the official record. Patricia had taught me that. Document everything, trust nothing. I went home to my penthouse, poured a glass of wine I didn't drink, and finally did what I'd been avoiding. Called Dad. He answered on the 5th ring, his voice groggy. Jade? It's almost midnight. Is everything okay? Kevin contacted me. Asked me for money. Got physical when I refused. I kept it clinical, factual. Dad sighed, a sound of long-suffering exhaustion I knew well. Let me guess. He saw you on that house show. I told him not to bother you, that you'd earned your peace. How much did he ask for? You knew he was going to contact me? He's been talking about it for weeks. Ever since that episode aired. Calling you his best friend, telling everyone how close you two were growing up. I tried to remind him of reality, but Kevin only sees what he wants to see. He always has. I failed him, Jade. I made him believe the world owed him something, that his charm could replace hard work. And I failed you by letting him and your stepmother treat you like you didn't matter. This honesty, this acknowledgement should have felt like victory. Instead it felt hollow decades too late. Why didn't you protect me, Dad? When Diane called me names, when Kevin pushed me away, why didn't you stop it? Because I was weak. Because I chose the path of least resistance. Because I told myself kids work things out. But mostly because I was a coward. We talked for 3 hours that night, Dad and I, the longest conversation we'd ever had. He told me things I'd never known, things that recontextualized my entire childhood. How Diane had threatened to leave him if he chose his bastard over his real son. How she'd poisoned Kevin against me from the start, telling him I was stealing his father's love and money. How Dad had tried weakly to balance two families and had failed both. After your mother died, I wanted to reach out to be there for you. But you were so strong, so independent, and I was ashamed. Ashamed that I'd let you down your entire life. So I stayed away, telling myself you were better off without me. His voice cracked. I watched you build your empire from a distance. I have a scrapbook, Jade, of every article written about you, every interview. I told my friends about you, bragged about my brilliant daughter. But I never told you because I didn't think I'd earned the right. You didn't. The words came out harsh, honest. But at least you're owning it now. That's more than Kevin ever did. Kevin called me after your dinner. He said you assaulted him, that you're mentally unstable, that he's going to sue you for emotional damages unless you give him the money. Dad's voice hardened. I told him if he pursues this, I'll testify against him. I'll tell the truth about everything. I'm done protecting him from consequences. After I hung up, I sat in the dark, processing. My entire childhood, I'd believed I was the problem, that something was fundamentally wrong with me that made me unlovable to my own family. But I wasn't the problem. I was the scapegoat, the convenient target for their dysfunction. 3 days later, I received a legal letter. Kevin was suing me for defamation, emotional distress, and breach of familial duty. The last one wasn't even a real legal concept, his lawyer had made it up. The letter detailed how I'd viciously attacked him at the restaurant, how I'd spread lies about his character, how I'd abandoned him in his time of need despite our lifelong close relationship. Attached were photos. Old photos I'd never seen. Kevin and me at a park, him pushing me on a swing. At a birthday party, his arm around my shoulders. At the beach, building sandcastles together. They were real, these photos. I remembered these days. What I also remembered was what happened after the cameras were put away. The birthday party where he dumped punch on my dress and told everyone I'd done it for attention. The beach day where he buried my favorite toy in the sand and refused to tell me where. The park visit where he pushed me so hard I fell off the swing and broke my wrist. But the photos showed none of that. They showed a loving big brother and his adoring little sister. The narrative he was building, the lie he was selling. My lawyer, Margaret Walker, looked at the photos and the complaint and shook her head. He's building a case that you had a close relationship, that there was an implied contract of familial support, and that your refusal and public humiliation of him caused quantifiable harm. It's bullshit, but it's strategic bullshit. Can he win? No. But he can drag you through discovery, through depositions, through a trial. He can make your life hell for the next 2 years. And if he's smart, he's counting on you settling just to make it go away. I thought about it for exactly 10 seconds. File a countersuit. Harassment, assault, attempted extortion. And Margaret? Don't hold back. The legal battle consumed 6 months of my life. Discovery was brutal, both sides excavating decades of history. But something unexpected happened. People came forward. My childhood best friend, Tamika, who I'd lost touch with years ago, sent an affidavit describing Kevin's cruelty. He told Jade she was too dark, too ugly, that nobody would ever love her. He made her hate herself. Teachers from my elementary school, still working in the district, pulled records of my absences, the days after particularly bad incidents at home. My college roommate, Angela, described how I'd cried myself to sleep for months freshman year, how I'd send letters to Kevin that came back unopened. The evidence piled up, a mountain of truth that contradicted Kevin's fairy tale. His lawyer started making settlement overtures. I refused them all. Then Denise called me Kevin's wife. "I'm divorcing him," she said without preamble. "I found out he's been lying about everything. There were no medical bills, at least not major ones. He gambled away our savings trying to get rich quick, invested in his friend's cryptocurrency scheme, lost it all. And he's been telling me this whole story about you, about how you abandoned the family, how you're selfish and cruel. But I did some digging, Jade. I talked to your dad. I found Dorothy's obituary, saw that Kevin wasn't even listed as a mourner. I know the truth now. We met for coffee, Denise and I, two women unpacking the same man's lies. He was beautiful, tired, done. He saw you on that show and became obsessed. He said we were going to be rich, that his stupid sister owed him, that he'd manipulate you if he had to. Thought he was just venting. I didn't realize he meant it." Kevin dropped the lawsuit 2 weeks before trial. His lawyer withdrew, citing irreconcilable differences with his client. Dad called to tell me Kevin had moved across the country, that Denise had full custody of the kids, that he'd essentially disappeared from all their lives. "You won," Dad said, but his voice carried no celebration. "Nobody won, Dad. That's the thing about family warfare. Even when you're right, even when you're vindicated, you still lose something." I was standing in my mansion, the one Kevin had seen on TV, surrounded by $12 million worth of empty rooms. I'd bought it as proof, as evidence that I'd made it, that I'd succeeded despite them all. But success tasted like ash when there was no one to share it with. I donated the $250,000 Kevin had asked for to a foundation supporting children from broken homes. I set up a scholarship in Mama's name. I finally started the therapy Dr. Harris had been recommending for years. Real therapy, not just the sessions I'd been half attending. And slowly, painfully, I started to understand that Kevin hadn't forgotten I existed for 15 years. He'd always known. He'd just chosen to pretend I didn't matter until I became useful. That hurt worse somehow, the deliberateness of it. Sometimes I still think about that little girl crying outside her brother's bedroom door. I wish I could tell her that it gets better, that someday she'll be strong and successful and free. But I'd also have to tell her the truth. That success doesn't heal the wounds, doesn't fill the spaces where love should have been. That you can have everything and still feel hollow. That some doors, once closed, can never truly open again, no matter how much you achieve, no matter how much you prove. Family should mean safety, belonging, unconditional love. For me, it meant betrayal that carved scars so deep, even $12 million couldn't fill them. And that's a truth I carry every single day, in every empty room of my beautiful, lonely mansion. If you've experienced family betrayal or estrangement, please know you're not alone. Subscribe and share your story in the comments below. Together we heal.